Hello world. It's been a minute since I last made one of these videos. I think most of that has to do with starting to learn Ruby on Rails, which for someone who doesn't have a huge coding background is like a pretty big step to move from like, okay, we did Ruby, then we did HTML, CSS, / and then we went straight to Rails. I think that's like, conceptually speaking, quite a lot. So I don't know, I just didn't feel like until now I've really had something that I was like psyched to share. Today I finally like sat down and was like, okay, I'm going to work out how to do some things and did that. So today in this video is basically sort of on like API basics / like my interpretation of it. So again, if you're expecting an instructional, maybe this isn't what you're looking for, but I definitely think that I'll just kind of like talk about APIs in like an extremely low level kind of way, and just to like fundamentally sort of maybe understand a little bit more of what exactly they are. So yeah, like I was interested in using APIs to like pull resources and just like figure out how to interact with the internet. I think part of this whole learning process was just sort of like appreciating how the internet works and you know, what is getting, what is posting, patching, deleting, blah blah blah. And yeah, I thought APIs would be a next good step. So like the idea with this site here that I've created, this Rails app, is that I wanted to access some of my like social accounts. So Twitter, YouTube, and Medium is what I ended up pulling. I wanted to do LinkedIn, but I didn't end up doing it. And just pulling what I've created and then collating it all on one thing. So like at the end of the day, I wanted to be able to sort of put it all on one page and sort it by date. It took me all day just to figure out how to pull each of the resources, and like a lot of trawling around figuring out how APIs work, how you make requests, like how that works within Rails. Yeah, so like I'll show you what I've got in the end. So I'm going to do start server. It's not going to show us anything. Cool. So yeah, I think like it was interesting because I think with this stuff, there's like it was hard to find like really succinct, low level explanation of what an API is and how you like make it work with your app. I think where I always fell off the wagon today was, you know, they're like, oh, and then you get this API key and then you just integrate that API key into your web app. And I'm like, that's great. I don't actually know how to do that even a little bit, and like tracking down the ways and sort of, because of course it turns out there's about 5 bazillion different ways to use API keys in your app. And, you know, when you like log onto all these websites where like, you know, Twitter, for example, they're like give you 4 different keys and some of them is like 2 of them are secret and 2 of them are not secret. And you're kind of like, what does this mean? And everyone, I don't know, it's just that level of assumed knowledge that feels a little bit hard to understand. You have to sort of track down the resources that talk about that in a more like base level. So anyway, we'll go to, so like what I ended up with was, I'm gonna refresh this, was a page that just displays what, like, I don't know, it looks like 20 tweets or something, tweets, retweets, comments. So this is just what comes stock standard when you generate a controller. So I generated a controller with Rails and then gave it these methods to start with. So I'm able to get the content of the tweet, also its date, and that's what all of these are, which is cool. I did the same thing with Medium. No, we'll get to Medium later actually, because it's slightly different. YouTube did the same thing. Both of these used a gem actually, which I kind of was like, once I realized that gems are a good way to do it, I was like, oh, of course, that makes it like way much easier. You don't have to, but it certainly makes life much easier. So yeah, same thing, like that's the default, what comes with it. And then here's like the videos that I put up, no links, which is probably dumb. So yeah, title, description, when it was published. And then I also did Medium, and Medium is funny. It doesn't actually easily let you pull stuff off their API, though when I was looking at this, I was like maybe almost 4 o'clock. So I was kind of like, you know, I found out you could do it through RSS, and that was much easier. So for those of you who maybe don't know what RSS is, if you're like me and you're like, I don't know, you see the little button of RSS at the bottom, and it's like add to your RSS feed. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I've never had to know, so I don't know. Turns out RSS is actually kind of a cool way to like do this kind of stuff. So like here I've got, this is again the default text, and then we've got the title when it was published, and then the actual link, which if you put that in to your browser, that will actually link you out to, oops, didn't copy that one. That'll link you out to the actual Medium article. So you could like chuck that anchor tag or whatever and it'll work. So yeah, I think that was interesting. Like I didn't really even think of RSS feeds as a way to like collate this kind of information together in a way that's easy to understand. So that's sweet. Cool. So yeah, let's go back to the code and look at more how I did it. So APIs in general, I don't know, like if you are listening to this to get some sort of information, API or the term of, it's like, what's it called? Like application programming interface, something like that. It gives you a way to interact with external coding, like external code bases, like external services, things like Twitter, things like YouTube and Medium, where you can interact with those services from your app, which is super cool. And the way that they generally do that is that you will be given a key, like you register your app, they'll give you a key, and then you put that key in your app somewhere, and then you're able to like you're able to make requests from their web service. Because if you think about it, like, as you probably already know, like, it's all on the net, it's all coming from somewhere, and you, just like we on Rails make GET requests for our own stuff, you can do that to other, like for other services and other applications. So let's use Twitter. Yeah, I think Twitter is a pretty good one to start with. So before all this was like, up here you can see in my controller, I've got like the index, the GET, didn't get to those, and then these are the actions for the Twitter page, the YouTube page, and the Medium page. So all it's doing is saying @tweets equals Twitter tweets, which is a bit of a mouthful. And then I've put all the actual way that this gets authorized in the bottom. I'm not really sure what best practice is for like authentication and like pulling these resources, because technically every time I press the enter key, it like makes another request. And I don't know, like, if the better, I guess you would put it in a database the first time and then ask it, I don't know, or not. Anyway, so like here you see, yeah, so this is what actually returns all those tweets that I then play with. The client, Twitter REST client. So this is a gem, and then basically you're configuring all of the API keys. And I've used, instead of putting them straight in, so like, I think where, like I said before, the thing that really tripped me up was like, how do I hide my keys? Like, you know, they give you these API keys and it's like, don't share your API keys, because someone can just like put it into their app and then they're doing potentially malicious things using your API key, which is tied to your name. So of course, all of the like things I was looking up are saying, okay, and then you get this gem and then you just put in your key. I'm like, cool. Like this is, I basically copy pasted this whole thing. And they're like, you put this in your code base. I'm like, that's great. Like, where does it go in my code base? I don't know. It's like that a bit of sort of assumed knowledge. I think there's like something in here, config, that I read about after I'd done all this, like the initializers, something like that, where it goes in. I ended up using another gem called, let me look at my gem file, .env, and that basically allowed me to add those keys into this env file that I then created. So when you're looking at this controller, you can see it's calling env, like env for environment, I believe, and then asking for that key, and that is returning the actual key here. So this env file is git ignored. It doesn't get uploaded to my GitHub. It doesn't get uploaded to the Heroku. I think on Heroku it's different again. So on Heroku I needed to add all of these things to the Heroku, like to my account through the command line interface, which is its own thing, but it's like, you know, you run a bunch of commands and it's up there. And then it reads these the same way. Yeah, and then I think I was kind of like, once I had done this and like got it to actually show some tweets, I was like, oh my God, this is magic. This is ridiculous. So all this method is doing is like, client configures these things and then return client user timeline, and that's my timeline. and then assigns it to an instance variable, which is then passed to the view. And then each tweet, it's doing tweet and then text and created at, and that's like the gem taking over and saying, okay, tweet text, calling text on tweet will give you this answer. So you can like look at the Twitter documentation and they like break it down much more basic, and they give you good Ruby examples as well where you don't have to use a gem, but the gems do make it easier. The documentation for this Twitter one is like much harder to read than the YouTube one, but like it's relatively straightforward. So that's how the Twitter one works. The YouTube videos one works similarly. It's slightly different. So I think for the Twitter thing, all I really needed was this. I ended up getting these like access tokens and stuff, and I don't know, like I think with all of this, I can actually post and pull and like and do things. But with the consumer secret, like consumer key and secret, I can do what you would usually do if you just log on as a non-user. So the YouTube one's slightly different. Again, it's like I'm configuring a gem. So this time I'm configuring the class directly for the session, I think. So giving it again that YouTube API, which lives in here, which I'm not going to show you. And then all I'm doing is saying channel, calling the gem, new ID, and that's the ID of my, that's like my publicly available ID of my YouTube channel, and then returning the videos, which is then passed to the instance variable. And then you can say title, description, published at, and that's when we get all of these nice, where is it? These ones. So yeah, title, description, and then date, which is cool. And then lastly, just to keep it fresh, we've got the Medium. So that's an RSS request, which is different. I like basically copy pasted this from the Medium article actually. And these two little things come with Ruby. So you can, even with like a relatively recent version of Ruby, I assume, you can require these things and then do this. So URL equals XYZ, that's my account, open URL do RSS. So I assume that basically, pulls the RSS thing, feed equals RSS parser, and then it passes all out, and then you can return the item. So if you have a Medium account, you go medium.com to your account, and then why don't I just show you? I think that makes more sense. There we go. So you can do this on your own account, and this is what it returns you. This is like an XML feed, an XML file, and it's got all this stuff. I couldn't figure out how to get access to this content encoded. I believe it's actually encoded/content. It's a namespace, and that's actually the HTML that's in it. But you can access all this like category, link, title, blah, 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 like super easily. Interesting that it says C data. Yeah, so I just need to figure out how to do this. And then you can just easily like pull it onto your wherever you want it. So with the Medium one, let's look at the control first. So I'm just saying, what am I returning? Feed items, and then I'm assigning all those feed items to articles, which makes sense in my brain. And then article title, pub date, link, and that just all is going back to these tags that's in the actual, I think I closed it, that is in the actual XML feed, and then that comes up on the website, which is cool. So I don't know, like I think the part of this that took the longest was like going on, figuring out, I don't know, for some reason it felt scary to like go on Twitter and say like, and register for an app. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a peanut. Like it's like, you know, they're like asking, what is the business model thing for this for? Like, what are you going to do with it? Give us like 100-word description at least, in that kind of thing. But it seems like I don't know, it took me like 10 minutes to get it. It's all like very instantaneous, and they seem to be fine with me just like pulling tweets, and presumably like now I can like publish tweets from the site if I set up a form and do all the stuff. Yeah, so I don't know, like I think it's real cool. I haven't figured out, I think the next step here is to like, with this index thing is to figure out how to like pull this information, like format this information into a way that I can then sort it by date. Because all these things have, I mean, the YouTube videos and the Twitter thing, they format the dates in the same way, but the Medium one does not, because presumably because it's an RSS and Medium is different. Figuring out how to like format all of it and sort it. I don't know. I started thinking about it, looked at the clock, it was 5:20. I'm like, no, this is not going to happen. Yeah, so that's sort of what I did today. It doesn't really feel like a lot, but I feel like I learned quite a bit. And it feels real nice to just be able to like start up a Rails project and start routing things and not have to like be scared that I'm going to break the entire thing anymore. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm like psyched to keep working on this actually. Probably won't put the repo up just yet, but maybe with the next video. Yeah, cool.